You are getting ready to listen to the voice of Dr. Rhadi Ferguson, 2004 Olympian, four-time national judo champion, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, author, speaker, and coach.
We have something in our process at Switch On that we call friction points. And the one thing about the friction point process is that a lot of people mistake a friction point for a hurdle. They mistake a friction point for a roadblock. And in today's cancel culture, they mistake a friction point for a fork in the road, meaning that they have to leave and go somewhere else. And let me say this. Friction points occur in every area in life. They occur in relationships, they occur in finances, and they also occur in the health and wellness phase of life. And when these friction points appear, a lot of times people don't have the opportunity to identify what they are. Now, let's understand this. There's a difference between friction and viscosity from a physics standpoint or engineering standpoint, if you will. Viscosity happens when there's fluid in between two solids, and the things move on, and they get hot, but they move real rapidly. All right. When the fluid in between gets thick, it gets more viscous, then things start trudging and sludging along. We're not talking about the viscosity that happens in relationships. Now, we talk about viscous situations deeper in our coaching programs because these are times or points where people are actually moving and they think that they're making progress because they're moving, and they're moving in the direction in which they want to move, and they're not moving as fast as they would like, and they confuse a viscous situation for a friction point when the friction point is more of an internal one that is happening to them on the cognitive or the mental side. So we're not going to talk about the viscous situations right now. All right. Now, what happens with friction? All right. And viscous situations create heat too. But what happens with friction? Well, friction is when two solids, two things rub against each other, and then they create discomfort. All right. It creates heat. And in the personal space, it creates a level of hardening. So, all right, not to make a joke, but for those individuals whose thighs rub together when you walk, happens to me too. I'm a big squatter, so it happens to me too. You'll see that sometimes it gets, because of the friction of your thighs running, that becomes a darkening happens, or you have friction with your hands when you're on the weights and you get calluses. Okay, so when friction happens, sometimes there's a protective mechanism that comes into play to allow you to work through the process of friction. That point hurts, all right? So I'm going to talk about the protective mechanism that is provided with friction first, all right? We call those things calluses. Now, here's the thing about building up callus. You can build up callus that allows you to work through a situation. However, when you build up the callus, the situation in and of itself has not gone away. Now, why is this important to mention? Well, it's important to mention in the process of dealing with friction points, because that particular callus can sometimes be beneficial and it can sometimes be hurtful, especially in the realm of communication. So when we're talking about building up a callus, not necessarily, I'm not talking about resilience. Resilience is something different. I'm talking about callus. I'm talking about something that has been built up over time that allows you to just keep going and dealing with the friction. Not addressing the friction, but dealing with the friction. All right. Like I said, there's times when this is good and there's times when this is bad. When is this good, Dr. Ferguson? This is absolutely phenomenal for gymnasts when their hands need to be stronger and more callous so they can get on the rings and the bars. This is absolutely phenomenal for
martial artists who do taekwondo or karate when their feet need to be more callous and more hard. This is absolutely phenomenal for weightlifters when they're building up callus so they can deal with the weight of the situation. They're not trying to run away from the weight. They're trying to deal. They want that friction to be there. When is this bad, Dr. Ferguson? This is bad within the context of the Switch On coaching program when we are talking about communicating clearly. When you cannot and you do not communicate clearly, it is very, very difficult to live with intent. In our book, The VIP Life, we talk about intentional living. There's a reason why the good book says write the vision and make it plain. There's certain things that you need to write and there's certain things you need to say. That's why life and death is in the power of the tongue, because there's certain things you need to speak. When you become callous, many times within the context of a relationship, you get so callous when you're talking back and forth and communicating that you just shut down. Now, Doctors John and Julie Gottman, they're authorities in the space of marriage and communication, and they wrote a book called The Marriage Clinic, and they also wrote about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse as it relates to marriage. And there's one point in the process when the relationship is getting ready to go bad, when people start stonewalling. They go through a process of contempt and they start stonewalling, meaning you're talking to her and she's like, yeah, okay, all right, I got it, I heard you. But she's not doing anything. And vice versa, when the woman is talking to the man and they say, hey, I need you to pick up this. Okay, I got you. I got it. All right, I got it. You're no longer communicating. You become callous in the process. You're just working your way through. You're not addressing the true nature or the problem which exists. And you create this callous which does not allow you to deal with the friction point that's currently in the situation. Now, what we do in the Switch On coaching program, and I want to talk to you about this, and this is a series that I'm going to release on friction points. I want to talk to you about when you create that callus, that emotional and that attitudinal callus, which is in place, that hardening which is in place, the refusal to address the thing that is causing the friction. What you do is you actually build up, with your calluses, you build up a padding that separates you from the person. It separates you from the real situation that needs to be addressed. So the more callous you build up, the more separation you build up with the person. And then you sell yourself on the fact that things have gone too far and we can't break through this particular divide. Now, the divide which is there is one that you helped put there because you refuse to address it. Now, let me break this thing down like a fraction for the ladies who are listening and for some of the men who go get manicures and pedicures too. When you make your appointment and you get your pedicure, you go to the pedicure place, you sit down, they put your feet in the water and do the thing. I've never had a pedicure ever in my life. I don't have no problem with pedicures. I'm not one of them dudes. I'm not going to get my feet done. I keep my feet nice. I Vaseline 2 pairs of socks, clip my toes, etc. I'm not going to the place to have the people, play with my feet. That's me, all right? My cousin, he goes, I don't do that. I'm not whatever new thing they got going on, the metrosexual or the cool, and I don't. I never wore the cologne Youp, and I just tried Cool Water 2 weeks ago. Like that's me. I like hard musk scent. You understand what I'm saying? Chaps, Pierre Cardin, Brut. That was me back in the day. Okay, let's just get that together. All right. So when you go to get this pedicure, they knock off the hard stuff off your feet with a pumice stone. Why? Because that callus has been built up over a period of time because of you just walking around and being in your shoes, which means everybody needs some form of therapeutic modality, some form of coaching, okay, some form of mentoring, or some process that is available to act as a pumice stone to shave down the callus so that you don't lose your interaction and your ability to touch and connect and talk with other people. If you're in the context of a marital space or a quasi-marital space, it is helpful to go to the nail shop, which you would call a marital therapy session, in order for them to shave some things down at times so you can keep and maintain that connection. Some people go to church and they do it. Some people sit down and some people go to a coaching session and they do it. We have clients right now within the context of the Switch On coaching program where we sit down with some couples who live together, and we help them shave off some of the rough edges that they have so they can achieve the connection that they need, because the process of life and friction, just of walking around like you walk around on your feet, it creates some calluses. It creates some thickness at times. And when these things come, you have to shave these particular things down. What happens is, let's talk about it. At your job, you don't like Nancy, you don't like Fred, you don't like the lady in human resource, so you don't say anything. 1 month, 6 months, 2 years goes by, 5 years go by, 7, you don't say anything. Callus builds. The callus builds up to the point where you don't even know why you don't like that person anymore. Because you're not connected enough to understand why you don't like them. All you know is that the callus is in place, the divide is in place, and I have to maintain this divide, because now here's what you do. Here's what a lot of people do. I got to protect my peace. Oh, you have to protect your peace. So is that what you're doing? So if you want to protect your peace, you can go lock yourself in a room and never walk outside again. That is the dumbest thing that I've ever heard. Protect your peace. Protect it. What are you talking about? Protect it. No, let people say this, and I don't have any problem with people saying this. Protect your peace. You protect your peace by working on your own personal conceptual framework, which is how you see the world. So you work on yourself internally, you do the intrinsic work, and then you do the conceptual work so that you can see things and process things differently. See, the thing about working through the friction point is, can I see this other person's point? Am I able to listen and understand the other person, or where the other person is coming from? Can they do the same thing to me and for me, so that we can shave these things down, maintain the connection, and move forward? Friction. Now, is friction a bad thing? No. Friction is not a bad thing. I remember D.R.C. Rhyming told me this. He's the president of the Bahamas Judo Federation, and he's a deacon in the Catholic Church. And he told me this. We used to have strong conversations about philosophical approaches to judo, about tactics, about strategy, about training practices. We used to have, and sometimes we're banging heads, and when we finish, we'll sit down and have something to eat, and we'll talk and we'll laugh. He said, relationships, especially relationships with men, need healthy friction in order to grow. And I said, that's the truth. I said, you don't grow in the weight room without the healthy friction. It's the friction from the weights that create the growth, that create the strength. You can't walk around the earth without the friction. But the friction is necessary for you to grow. Here's the problem. Now let's move into the misidentification of friction points and roadblocks. Many of you, and I will tell you that I experienced this myself. I've told you, and many people who are listening, I was married for 17 years, and then there was a divorce or a split. There was a buildup of some callus. There was some friction that occurred, which occurs in all relationships. And then one individual looked at that friction as being a roadblock and decided to detour. And it took me some time to respect that, understand that, but I respect that because I do know this. I'm talking about myself. I'm not talking about that other person. I'm talking about myself in relation to people in the world. Okay? In relation to people in the world, I realize that I'm built a lot different. I can handle a lot more weight on my back. My spiritual legs are a lot stronger. My spiritual lower back is a lot stronger. I can handle a lot of spiritual weight on the bar. And because I can handle a lot of spiritual weight on the bar, God understands this, puts a couple plates on, lets me keep lifting. He's not going to give me any more than I can bear, but there's still some more that I need because there's other people that I need to help with their spiritual undergirding as well. And I can't help them until mine grows and increases. So my friction points and my issues and the problems that I have and the things that occur in my life that are full of friction, okay? I look at those things as being quality training practices to provide me with the growth that I need. Other people look at friction points like roadblocks. Now, here's the thing. Well, Dr. Ferguson, when will I know if it's a friction point, and when will I know if it's a roadblock? I'm glad that you asked. If you, I'm going to bring this thing home. If you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you can say unto the mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it will remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. Now that's the scripture. Now let me give you a worldly explanation. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. What did Muhammad Ali say? Muhammad Ali said, I hated every minute of training, but I said to myself, don't quit, suffer now, and live the rest of your life as a champion. See, seeing something as a friction point and seeing something as a roadblock is you. When people come to us at Team Switch On, our job is to do this. Our job is to find the place in your mind that is holding you back, and to go inside of that room and to find the switch in there to turn the light on, to illuminate the possibilities that are available for you to move forward and stop seeing what you think is a roadblock, what you think is a wall, what you think is a mountain, and let you understand and know that if you pour faith into yourself, and if you allow us to pour faith into you, and if you understand that faith comes by hearing and hearing the word of God, and if you understand that you were made more than a conqueror, if you understand that you were made just a little bit lower than an angel, if you understand who you are and whose you are, then there are no roadblocks. Because the thing says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. As much as Coach All and I got potty mouths and go back and forth, that's our issue. Y'all pray for us. But what I'm telling you right now is that the word allows you to know that what you want to do is available for you if you believe that you can do it. So yes. When you quit, that time when you quit, you quit. But that doesn't make you a quitter, because a quitter is one who quits. Aristotle said, you are what you repeatedly do. If you don't repeatedly quit, if you're not a quitter, if you're not in the habit of quitting, then you're not a quitter. We all have a quit mechanism, everybody. I don't care what it is. If me, you, who's on here, Deb, Dwayne, if we all put some running shoes on right now and we go running, all right, and we're not allowed to stop, all of us will drop dead at some point in time, because everybody has a natural or an inbred quitting mechanism. Some people can only handle so much, and those people who get to the point where they can't handle whatever they can handle, man, then they leave, or they just die, or they just drown, or they kill the situation that they're in. If you're in the water and you're treading water, there's a point in time that your ability to tread water is going to run out and you will die. Now watch this. If I am in the water, treading water next to Michael Phelps, who is going to drown first, me or Michael Phelps? Who? It's going to be me. Now I need somebody who's listening. Type in why I will drown before Michael Phelps will. Somebody. If I'm in the water with Michael Phelps, we're both treading water, we're in the middle of the ocean, I'm going to drown before Michael Phelps. Why? Now watch this. Brother Farrar said, because of training. So let me tell you this. Let me say this to you. Be careful in life, in relationships, in friendships, in business dealings, of coupling yourself with people who don't understand the value of suffering. Jesus. The value of suffering. There's value in the suffering. The beautiful thing, the reason why there's a fraternity of athletes, okay, especially athletes who have done combat, like combat sport athletes, like football players and judo players and wrestlers and MMA people who boxers. The reason why there's a fraternity is because there's a fraternity of physical punishment and suffering. Do you suffer when you run? Yeah, you suffer when you run. Do you suffer when you play tennis? Yeah. Do you suffer when you're doing baseball training? Yeah, you suffer. It's really different. It's very different when the person that you line up in front of is trying to hurt you. Because your close relationships are like that. The people that you love the most do the most damage to you, even when they're not trying to. Just because they disappoint you and they let you down because they're not you. But in the true dialectical experience, the true dialectical experience requires friction. It requires a thesis, an antithesis, and then synthesis. And without the friction of the thesis and the antithesis, there is no synthesis, there is no growth. There has to be value in the dialectical process due to the suffering. When you, and let me say, I said this before. It was maybe about a year and a half ago when I was coaching with Coach Arlo. All right. Before Coach Arlo and I teamed up together with Team Switch On, I did health and wellness coaching by myself. You know, I taught kinesiology, I taught exercise science, I taught nutrition at the University of Tampa and the University of Central Florida, and I did some of the stuff by myself. But my clientele wouldn't grow because, man, when somebody upset me or pissed me off, I said, I'm not dealing with that. I'm not dealing with that. I'm not dealing with that. And I remember we were in a meeting one time with Coach Arlo, and I said, hey, man, I'm not dealing with that. Just get rid of this person. Coach Arlo said, don't say that no more. You can't say that. You can't decide that you're not dealing with somebody anymore, and we're in business to help people. He said, you can't make that decision. I said, man, who the hell he think he talking to? You know what I'm saying? I had my fist balled up. I was ready to go. But he was 100% correct. The reason why I was not able to grow is because there was a refusal of me to accept that my clients were actually teaching me something or providing a lesson that I needed, and I wasn't going through the process to get the lesson from the clients. Because there's a concomitant relationship between the client and the coach, where the client grows and the coach grows. But I can't be in a relationship coaching and expect the growth to be one way and unilateral. That's ridiculous. But that was what I was doing for a portion of time. And when I was working for myself, a little bit of money that I was making was okay, but there was no scalable growth. There was no scalable growth because I was not willing to deal with the friction that was created in that area. Why? Well, because I'm really, really good at dealing with physical friction. Judo, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, weightlifting, physical stuff bother me. Ugh. Even emotionally, some stuff bother me. Ugh. But not the emotional side, the attitudinal friction. Like when people come to the table and their attitude is different than what I think it should be. That doesn't make me right. It just makes me different. And I had to learn how to not only value the person and what they were bringing to the table, but value the friction that is caused by the differences. Now, let me move forward and close off for today so that we can all walk away from something with value here. I don't believe that it's the wrong thing. So I don't believe it's the right thing to not talk about politics with people. I think it's wrong to not listen to people. I think we talk about politics and we talk over people. I don't think it's the right thing to not engage in discussions about sexuality. I think contextually there's times when you should and there's times when you shouldn't based upon appropriateness in certain areas. I think that we lose a lot in the cancel culture because we don't deal with the friction. I think that if you want someone to accept homosexuality and the LGBTQ movement, you also need to accept that they aren't willing to accept that. And if you want them to accept the way you think, then you also have to accept the way that they think, listen to their end, they listen to yours, and then have some mutual respect and move forward. And there's a way to do all of those things without taking personal pot shots, speaking to people disrespectfully, and trying to hurt the other person in conversation. You may have a feeling about race and racism and people of color, and that's fine. And somebody might feel a little bit differently, and that's fine too. They take their thesis, you bring your antithesis as they see it, come together, and then form some synergistic growth. But if you decide to stay in your position and in your position only without listening, you build up callous, it creates a divide, and we can't move forward because you're only interested in protecting your peace. Honor the friction in life. Sometimes create it as we do in the switch on process. Tomorrow, we will talk about friction in friendships. Friction in friendships is what we will talk about tomorrow. Friction in friendships. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate the inclination of your ear. I appreciate you listening. I also hope that you got something from this particular process. I would encourage you to go look up the the physics definition of friction, the physics definition of viscosity, understand what happens in the process of friction. Please look up Doctors John and Julie Gottman. John and Julie Gottman, wonderful individuals. I studied them during my PhD process when I was working on some classes and I wanted to become a better coach. I knew that I needed to study marriage because there's a marriage that happens or a connection that happens with the coach and the client. So I did a lot of studying of that, and I want to know how to coach people who were married and weren't married. Also, I encourage you to go to www.theviplife.net. And the reason why I'm encouraging you to do that is because there's some intrinsic work that has to be done to change your conceptual framework and the way that you see the world so that you can open up the opportunity for someone to come in and help you find your switch so that you can get your switch on. Man, this is Dr. Rhadi Ferguson, and on behalf of Team Switch On, which is myself and Coach Arlo Henderson, I say that we love you, but God loves you best. And if you don't do anything else today, make sure you plug in, power up, and get your switch on. Please visit www.theviplife.net and get your switch on.